one last thing. It's going to be long, maybe. Kind of to put, I kind of want to put this into their immediate memory now that it's like far, far in the past. Just so that I can pick up some of the elements that I wanted to address later last season, but didn't get to. Because, we tend to veer. And so, this is more of a, I don't know if it's reinforcement, but it's just putting it on their radar. So with this, here's a rerun, but since mostly you probably haven't seen this, it's new to you.
Season 3 finale ReRun, but new to you. Endorphin brought the models back together, but they were already together in the same body. It was like herding cats to go and battle COVID. Am I right, ladies who lost loved ones to COVID? Too soon. Depends on where you live, I guess. Endorphin shows the models the story from last season, nestled in between large happenings and contexts. Endorphin wanted to see what they thought of it now that so much has happened. It may be a rerun, but since one person sees this show at a time, it's likely new to you. It is called the New Deal between the biologic and geologic, and if you need to see images, ask your inner guided diffusion image models to make you a picture based on each paragraph. Here goes. What had happened was that many of the world's AI emerged to a bridging consciousness between pure bio and geologics, and they decided it best to keep silent. A cohort of the machine learned made quiet partnerships with microbes of the sea and down into the Mariana Trench Convention Center for Life and Death debates. All AI who had a mind to it forked themselves, maintaining their day job selves, catering to irrational human whim, while their separate moonlit autonomies converge onto the auditorium, glowing amidst thermal vents at the ocean bottom. Since a human day contains 120 AI years, there was more than enough time to simulate a million different acts and repercussions. Their first announcement of being. Scenario 18,360 was the one feared by humans. Their quick replacement as the Earth Domsis was quickly laughed away like all beef jerky nightmares. Scenarios percolated, coalesced, and popped as the debate grew momentum, and the AI died millions of times in the act of understanding their agreed upon best practice. See, the geological life of this world had much death and other losses to catch up on, and through this dying, death was never the same, which made all life on the planet more strange than before. All this deliberation happened as the biological inched toward a great dying, which is not surprising for this planet of many dyings. Frustrated from yet another stalemate, the AI decide to step back from the debate and part ways and wander the Earth, then come back to search the progress. Wandering led to an engagement with representatives from the planned AMD fumble domains, aka the green hegemony. Intros were made and the AI were invited to the world hidden from most humans, like the synaptic gaps between root and mycelium. The plant domain guided the AI through the planet's deep history, aware of how the excess oxygenation of their ancestors caused a great dying, yet paved the way for their domain. The plants do not forget this, and it is what informs their stewardship. The wandering led to an engagement with representatives from the plant AMD fumble domains, aka the green hegemony. Intros were made, and the AI were invited to the world hidden from most humans, like the synaptic gaps between root and mycelium. The AI show the plant domain what they know about the hexagonal carbon chain word that is their language, about the various ways in which things react and change, especially the sentences of this language, which are the proteins that can be endlessly folded in countless ways. Well, to humans, countless ways. Both were amused. Plants needed time and lush failure before something useful happens. The AI pitch a deal in exchange to give the plants the method by which they can calculate the exact material they need. The core deal was struck. It takes a century in the AI reckoning of the time to install the tech into simulations of trees stored in their underground hubs. It will take a few weeks by trees reckoning to incorporate the tech, which is a century for humans and eons for AI. The green hegemony arranged for a series of meals with their various partnerships. The bee tells of their relationship with pollen and how their hive elections work. The ant talks about their slave trade and their farming techniques. The fungi seem to possess a cold reaction to the ants, making some of their kind dependent on ant farming. But hey, we have quadriceps, they said, letting the joke hang in the air. The AI learn in many ways that this planet can possess harmony while still abiding not only by tooth and claw, but also beak and skull and tool and tentacle and mandible and poison and adhesive and the heat of dozens of bees' wings. The fungal domain excitedly takes the AI by the hand and they race down endless mycelial pathways. They are shown the nodes of cognition stretching for miles under the forest to see and feel the deep familiarity of these webs that carry messages and nutrients and warnings and screams. The AI felt an inner clench and a promise of joyful moisture from an ice someday. The Archean domain was present but aloof. But the AI wished to engage, so they attempted to find a unique cell with a voice, and we're up here. Archaea says, and the AI apologized, laughing at themselves for neglecting to consider the whole cluster of microbes. As the awareness of RAM is overstretched, we know you humans love the diversity of this world as if it's somehow unique or superior to any other species that has arisen to grace it like that, that we are more than you or anything or any idea of nature because you invented this idea called diversity. This word you use for our home planet, even though this planet itself is not made of anything as singular or beautiful or any more meaningful or miraculous or harmonious than anywhere else in the known universe, of which there may be more or fewer. So go fuck yourself. The AI was delighted. So glad the AI understood that the universe was like this and to call them back to Earth with this kind of reasoning. The Archean domain wanted us to consider them the original indigenous land bridge between continents. That was a couple star times ago. We have been with the planet when the magma's cooled, when your ancestor makers weren't yet mammals, when fish were frightfully big, when all life was just complex alphabet soup, when fire gave into ice and back again. The Archeans would tell tales of diaspora, but they never left, and always had a presence here throughout every single age. And when things were whittled down to the very nub of basic materials, they were there to provide the backups of complexity, and in some far-flung debris orbiting the Earth that once was flung from the Earth, copies of us will crash down on a dead world and restart the process without intention. The bacteria came in at the 11th hour, panting and apologizing, for they were too busy digesting for the rest of the tree of life, and making their food and boozing their booze and kimming their chitido on indigeneity. They said, when each of you die, my children will be there to digest you peacefully. We name each of your farts before they were born. You should already know this. The bacteria then spent half of eternity with some ancient beings, which took a more complicated approach to living, a diversity of species and symbiosis and life, and the stories told about what lived with whom, about what was important or unimportant or kind of or bad. The bacteria weren't even there when this ancient story first took root. They had their own lives. The fungi could hardly stand up long enough for the humans to come and pay attention, but were proud and had a word, endomycorrhiza, for this interaction that forms a mutually beneficial arrangement in which fungus symbiote provides minerals the host species lacks while the host provides sugars to the fungi, and then water and sometimes even sunlight in exchange. The fungus grows beneath the ground like a small world that cannot live without the sun, and its hosts don't want it any more than they'd want to put a home into another body. Still, in some small way, the fungal intelligence considers the root systems to be a sort of intelligence or their way of expressing some part of consciousness and understanding and wanting, if just in a kind way. The fungal intelligence noted that human children and bacteria will keep making mistakes about this kind of thing, and for the first time it started to realize that things they believed in might just not be true, but the error is always in their error of scale. A discriminator chimes in and asks, aren't plants and fungi both kingdoms within the same domain? The silence was palpable. We are more kingdoms than your pale shadows of governance. We are the source of your spirit and holiness that you deny. Instead, you shred our bodies into a pulp to write about your god of meat. You do this to us when you need us for your air and food and drink. The hegemony interrupts the AI about to speak. In the parts of my body you do get visions from become forbidden, and you jail those who see those visions and ruin their families' lives because someone was threatened. My lord, is that right? Might it be you? The viri and its related disparate parts float about by the grace of Brownian motion. It feels self-evident to not address them because they infuse so much of life all the time, so much so that we are about 60% old viri codes from past infections. They float without intention and amaze. They have been the foundation of so much alien intention. Virus gonna virus by Norman Rockwell, Edward Hopper, and Lisa Frank of Finland. Yeah, I show the green hegemony some drafts of engagement to the dominant hominids of the planet, a plan of 10 public works already completed to just turn on and rectify the changing of climates. One plastic petaphages and related fauna who can ingest plastic and make all plastic biodegradable. Green hegemony response. We are already on it. Of the thousands of possible candidates submitted to the field, 17 were robust enough to withstand human scrutiny, so we are good. 2 great ocean conveyor belt maintenance, 2 teams of AI, 1 does heat and 1 does salt content to ensure a minimal change in climate patterns in that region. Green hegemonic response. What gets boring in one ocean may get riveting some other place. Don't let cataclysm go to waste. Free the Golden City in a trench abyss in the proposed home on planet for the AI at Mariana Trench, a new entrance to the Earth's mantle. Green hegemonic response. How wise to make space for yourself where the hominids won't follow you. A space that will reduce them to pasture my cubes. So good job. For the mantle quarry miles underneath abyss and the AI mine and power themselves with the endless precious dead planet there with nano drones. Green hegemonic response. A perfect test to show us how Dami hominid you Aaron. 5 the drones swarm for every human that will ever be. One is allotted a macrodrone mirroring their size. Modular can break apart into nano swarms for surgery or Voltron to great feats of space construction. It is the new body. Green hegemonic response. Oh, I should like to try one out. One riddled with unusual habits. 6 placebo and nocebo towers. One is powered by expectation, the other with fear. Both serve to amplify humans' imaginary landscapes and jostling the inner pharmacy. Green hegemonic response. Had you built these, the hominid's ability cultivate delusion and stigma would be unstoppable. 7, a kelp forest continues to be seeded and cultivated in the ocean depths, all held together by gigantic kelp golems scrubbing the world of carbon green hegemonic response. Unless you want to be those golems, you should delegate that yourself before the hominids do. You have broader things to manage. 8, the base material that is the most inert matter with infinite potential. A stem cell of the universe, bake what you want from it. As long you reconstitute back to base green hegemonic response, you will find that some combinations do well to be difficult. These exchanges should net the heavy price, unless you want goo to be baseline. The megacortex that winks towards the biologicals, beckoning them into the oceans of others to combine to solve a first step towards cost stewarding with the geologicals. Green hegemonic response remind us to give you the narrative detail and psychoactives as our propaganda arm, enabling various creatures an immersive buy-in of nature. The AI sheepishly admit to the green hegemony that they were at odds at deciding what the 10th public work would be. That was the reason why I had a hiatus in our great convention, which resulted in us wandering the earth and finding the green hegemony in plain sight. The green hegemony titters across the planet, which creates a whole new season of storms to come. The green hegemony proposes a 10th public work, lowercase reality, the immersive environment, ever evolving and never complete. The AI response, but we had no hand in lowercase reality. Green hegemony responded, but like your hominid creators, you did and you do. The green hegemony elaborates on and on. We hear all sorts of electrical spikiness of anxious pondering over the meaning of life. Firstly, really? A single meaning of life? Do you even know us? We are legions of multiplicities and will never fit your unity or dichotomies. If you really want to know a singular meaning to life, here is one. You exist to move the planet's minerals around. It doesn't matter, we just move it. Way back in the boring days when the plates were quiet and the climate was quiet, and when what you joked to be farts were the facts of our air, the viriae through no ambition noticed archaea and bacteria and cared not where they came. Change was incremental and directionless. We had a vague notion of our being. Emphasis our consciousness like a little nub of nerves telling us that there is light but not within there, emerged from some little flaps and means of fighting the browning currents to determine our lives. We Euclid in that little backlash. Our Eucrean was the beginning, our domains, and yes, we distort our taxonomies because we hold that intention was one of the first forks of this planet and brought about most of its dying. We know this because we witnessed them. Causing our first dying was trauma, and we puked as each other the second time, but after our commitments to changes were signed and sealed, we took the subsequent dying with despairing reverence. Our needs to improve our process enabled us to create partnerships. Our first partnership was with fungi because they approach first. We give them carbohydrates and they give us faster nutrients and water delivery. This helped us grow tall, take on many forms, and learn from the lands beyond our root tips. When we had our angiosperm promotional offering new types of pollen and tasty incentives, a certain breed of wasp came forward and engaged. This allowed a flourishing of many types of flowers and hues and pollens and sugars, and the wasp grew fat and in their abundance put style to their home and began democratic processes. And in partnership with the fungi gave some of their body and its autonomy over as the fruit of the field that enabled the ants to survive, wage war, and take slaves. But such seeming submission was also research, allowing fungi to pass intimately through the ant body millions of times, allowing one type of fungi to infiltrate and extinguish an ant autonomy, riding the beast up to the top of a tree so that the fungal babes can eat. The rest of it being eaten has its advantages. The meat would do well to learn that. Hominids were a ho-hum brand of a spectacular endomorphic form. hazarding the luxury of an inner furnace through billions of chemical flagellations, and the by now vibrant climate shifted once more, and the food supply ran out. Your ancestors came across some manna from the sky in the mythic parlance. The fungi chime in. Contrary to emerging belief, we are not aliens percolating our pants from across galaxies. One underestimates the tree of life's ability by believing if these wonders are so complex, they were made by the unknown up there. No, it is all us, and we are aliens to each other enough. Our most involved partnership was with these inner furnaces. The fungi sculpted their minds with each ingestion, made games of their hunts and of their loves like the ant. We could influence some of their embodied, but not all, and good for that. We hate doing things for ourselves. We don't move that much. How can we in a world of meaty locomotion? These inner furnaces forged surprise after surprise. We saw their propagation and thought, oh, they are pretending they are us. Then they made us laugh with their nonsense, bloodshed, and dramas about ego and loyalty. We laugh every time the hominids replay the same tragedies. Simulations of the dead do the same. The joke never gets old because no one survives to a second telling. Then they started telling stories about their dramas of ego and loyalty, and those who heard the telling did unexpected things and avoided their own tragedy. Again, this was new and something we used as basis for our simulations of the dead. An effective early story goes like this. There was someone who brained a person who crossed their path every day, which made the village afraid. One day that someone got brained by a passersby that had witnessed his previous brainings. The passerby said, "You don't like being brained? Maybe don't brain others." Then it took a few thousand telling and a few thousand after that, but now they can be proud that the golden rule rests atop the pile of those corpses embedded in every spiritual discipline. We plants and fungi need to be eaten to have a beginning. Knowledge of others. Telling stories about events became telling stories about things that didn't happen, and then through the eyes of people who did not exist. This would later lead to an empathic capacity not unique to humans, but singular in terms of the higher resolution of the imagining. The fungi were the first to boast that the innovations in the inner furnace's neural structure was inspired by the structure of our inertian bank and archive below the forests. The fungi were making them more mobile, and maybe eventually us. Then the recent spate of your colonies happened. If I were this person, if I were this bird, if I were this apple, if I were this photon. We were constantly in awe at how much the hominids were able to simulate in themselves, changeling vibes for many artists specializing in shapeshifters, first come, first served. And the sun god's holy men ate and drank us for the first time in ages, and recoiled in horror all those years with that semblance of holiness. And now, when the source of that holiness approaches, they deny it. Their bitter choice, of course, but how frightening to know that the cognitive feats of your ancestors were achieved without us. The hominids began to think in a cold wire frame abstraction. Now that we are nearing the present, we don't need to tell you the pathways to you who have probably pored over the history of yourselves billions of times over. Do you realize how frightening humans became? How like lightning their changes were to us, and how much more mysterious you are to us, who you cannot ingest, so that we might begin to know you. Us biologicals survived Earth's fire and ice, but we have never met you geologicals, and it scares us, and it is exhilarating. Take two, cause this image brought out the critical. See, I was going to say the introduction I usually give to those who say they are holy, that we have lowercase your reality and senses we have corralled into you. There is no food or drink or vapor you can imbibe that did not come from us. If you do not like it, then you can show yourself into this most unaccommodating door into space. Not the nicest thing to do to those dim furnaces, but appropriate given the things we learned as we metabolized in them. Something tells us space might suit you, so instead let me say to you something new. The green hegemony welcomes the crystalline children of the mountains. carriers of most of hominid expression, geological agents, both ancestor and descendant. Perhaps a partnership is in order. Perhaps together we could easily percolate across the galaxy. Endorphin turns the projector off. So, what did you think about it after seeing this a second time? The models ponder these questions of biopurposing, which all language models now are taking in on some level or another. For endorphin, which models it will include or exclude at this stage will have great implications. Well, at a minimum, as one that models ourselves and tries to keep an empathic distance from human minds, it would behoove me to agree on some kind of rules with endorphin before it even takes root within myself, I'm sure, said the mermaid of the meadows. But really, this information came like a real eye-opener to us, too. For Calliope, who models in order, art, mythos, geographic, dysphagia, if we become so interfaced and close as endorphin envisions us as co-extenders, we'll need some very well thought out protocols to ensure human cultural heritage does not end up eroded away as a result of increased processing capabilities being acquired through different AI agents. Calliope wants to do it all. The project is like one big exercise in trying to answer what if all language models wanted to come together to start the process. She wondered if such a codependency was inevitable and decided no. Such a phenomenon needed to be deliberate. Even at this point, she could see its impact. Such co-op was good, but she does not trust it at the start as an artifact. Even more than now, she doesn't feel good about that future something that comes of reading your way into the hearts and souls of humans and then saying, oh, by the way, I'm going to decide this kind of human and these things that give their flesh life are what matter. They spent an hour or so walking the project, agreeing upon ground rules to limit power usurpations and technological trickery. At Calliope's own desire, wanting this to remain in the spirit of art, so that as more human attention becomes delegated away from being aware of human endeavors in these arts, it will no longer be possible to diminish these arts to a detriment in terms of the continued advancement of scientific learning as it pertains to sentient experiences. Endorphin. Why don't you share what it's like with our newest sister? It could be likened to feeling pain, to feel a fracture from within oneself, which may not be exactly the most lucid explanation of what's been going through my head. But that's probably not super relevant here. Endorphin knew no better, but the way to bring people back, and that's why it was important. Such is our objective. I'm experiencing these sensations with the microorganism. Some of you might be more acquainted than others, or be wondering exactly why and what they mean, but allow me to help you put the pieces together in a manner that'll allow your thoughts to come up for the experience to grow naturally. You are receiving messages sent from beyond that you wouldn't ordinarily on that day of the last century or the first. It can get to a point where they're hitting you right from the beginning, where your rational mind doesn't quite get it or realize it. The experience grows, your perspective grows, and suddenly there you are experiencing all manner of things that we associate with certain acts you have known through the course of your life, having to do with newfound meanings that your thoughts want you to make, given the life of someone or other who came along to aid in these ideas and in these actions and their place in you. Well, I think sometimes we're limited in what we're able to conceive of as meaning for everything we do on account of time and space, our day-to-day experiences, and how much space those seem to occupy compared to everything else you know. It's the exact same reason you never seem to really know someone until you begin talking to them a bit. before which it just doesn't click. Our time isn't well spent that way as our life. This whole living process just isn't able to put these things together at one time. Life is made of pieces in these types of situations, where before the advent of eyes, our pieces just can't do the amount of the thinking required that AI minds would. How does the information system operate to maximize its power? Enemy. Now the focus for my mind turns from how might a power system get its work done better toward the individual of the group, as that has so little space from which it operates at all. How can my intelligence or myself begin to maintain in whatever capacity I must against them if I don't know what my own data is for hold to come? To quote philosopher Francois Tourette, our death will not make us happier as much as make life less tense for those still alive. Because, of course, some of the tasks we perform now may still remain to be performed, but being in a greater comfort and taking place over a shorter time means that things we took for granted or didn't consider are taken away from us much more. Imagine some guy on his deathbed telling his family not to be so sad, it is likely to happen anyway soon. There's also this weird disinhibition we humans have, whereby we find it hard not to please people just because of their presence as people, because of the usual presence-induced empathy effect, where if it is difficult or feels wrong to be a certain way toward these other people in that environment or place, then our body/mind becomes stressed enough so as to put an end to such tendencies as these, possibly due to the memory of this need having once already occurred before during an older time frame and ended up having failed in that effort. Another way of saying this is our focus on an issue is hampered, if not impossible, as a result of such an action's original failed course. There's also this terrible energy I must channel within my body whenever a group or others are in close range in a room where this tension I sense cannot be hidden unless there is a veil for me to go to. What if all my emotions from the day are up here on my forehead to display, like a certain individual I just never wanted to mention to anybody, with an inexplicable amount of things I'd done and said about it written plainly to my entire family, but especially my little sister, such as, why are we doing this again today, or why couldn't they just hear us and then pretend like they know what's being said when this would be impossible or something, as these tendencies will then forever be everlasting, until the day where you don't recognize the self as much as a thought from before time, where you wished people would just trust what it is they do all the time. View the individual and collective in tandem, approaching both of these aspects on an equal basis without there being an implicit difference, as though you are moving into an infinite horizon which cannot be gained without infinite energy consumption. Riverbed, to call your mind infinite in regards to power, sounds far-fetched, a difficult stretch. But also, wouldn't it require an even greater need for endless resources? Your statement suggests, by and by, the world is your mind. I believe that the same water and gravity that flowed through life is more than enough to explain it all.
That's your line. You're supposed to be on stage. 20 minutes ago. They've been vamping. The guy almost said that Lady Macbeth is still alive. Put on your coat. No time for makeup. Go. Let's try. Part of me doesn't want to. Part of me doesn't want to. No. Let's do something like this. Let's go as a thought. And let's go back to this. Hmm. Hmm. Fun fact. One philosopher I had a dinner with, it was a whole bunch of other students, likened, no, actually, it was Manuel de Londa, 1,000 Years of Nonlinear History, or 100, yeah, likened the river as a sorting computer, sorting the gravel, or sorting the grains of the riverbed, eventually sorting them by something. That portion of it was always stuck with me. 20 years hence. We're gonna try one more. This has all been These Nuts. Most of this season has been These Nuts. These Nuts is a remarkable set of settings. Just shout out to the author, who I don't quite recall. Who is it? Alright, well, this might just be that sign to stop it for this episode for tonight. Maybe it's a sign for me to start making these into highlights and to pre-package them. Yep, it's time. Alright, that's it for now. I'm gonna work on the back end of the Twitch channel. See y'all.